So today we're going to be looking at rewriting equations and putting them in the slope-intercept form. So the first question we need to ask, what is slope-intercept form? Well, that is y equals mx plus b. And we call it slope-intercept because the b represents the y-intercept and the m represents the slope. So if you look and notice, what you're really solving for is y. You want to try to get y by itself and get it equal to something. So if we look at this first example, we have y plus 8 is equal to negative 4 times the quantity x plus 9. So I need to simplify this side first. And so when it's a number in front of parentheses, remember that means multiply everything inside the parentheses by that number. So I need to distribute the negative 4 to the x and the negative 4 to the 9. So this is y plus 8 is equal to negative 4x minus 36. Because when I distribute, I multiply. Then the next step to get y by itself, y has 8 added to it. Well, to get this side to be y, 8 minus 8 is 0. So now y is by itself. And if I subtract it from the left side of the equal sign, I also have to subtract it from the right side of the equal sign. So I need to combine it with the 36 because they're both numbers. So I still have negative 4x. Negative 36 minus 8 is a negative 44. So we have now put it in slope-intercept form. Our next example, instead of having an integer that we multiply by, we multiply by a fraction. So we still have y minus 10 is equal to 1 over 6x minus 1. Because 1/6 times x is 1/6x. 1/6 times a negative 6 is a negative 1. Y is not by itself. This happens to be a negative 10, so the inverse operation of subtracting is to add. So now y is by itself, but if I added 10 on the left side of the equal sign, I must add 10 to the right side. So the 10 and the negative 1 can combine. They are like terms. So 1/6x and the negative 1 plus 10 is a positive 9. Rewrite the following equation in slope-intercept form. This is where I would suggest that you practice this one on your own. Pause the video, work it out, and then unpause and see if you got the same answer. So to still, let's distribute. So 1/2 times x is 1/2 x. 1/2 times 4 is 2. Then we need to add 10 to both sides. So y is equal to 1/2 x plus 12. So this is a common problem that students tend to face is, well, here's this negative, what do I do with it? Well, you could just distribute the negative sign, but some students need to see, and what you need to understand, is when there's not a number written there, it's understood to be 1. So that's the same as having a negative 1 on the outside of the parentheses. So I'm distributing or multiplying everything by negative 1. Negative 1 times x is a negative x, and negative 1 times 9 is a negative 9. So now I can subtract the 1 from the left-hand side, and then subtract it from the right-hand side. So now y is by itself. I still have a negative x, and negative 9 minus 1 is negative 10. Then what happens is this looks different. There's no distribution. We only have 16 times y equals 2x plus 17. Well, to get y by itself, this is again multiplication. So the inverse of multiplying is to divide. And when I divide, I have to divide everything on the right-hand side. So some people choose to write it like this, but what you need to make sure you understand is You could also write it like this and make sure that everything gets divided by that 16. So 16 divided by 16 is 1, so that leaves y by itself. 2 divided by 16 turns into a decimal, and in slope-intercept form, we really like to leave them as fractions. So what we really need to do is simplify the fraction rather than divide it out and turn it into a decimal. So 2 over 16 reduces to 1 over 8, and we still have the x, plus 17 over 16 is actually the most reduced form. So we're going to leave it as 17 over 16. And for our last example, this one is written in what is called standard form. And this is what we practice a lot in my class. It's taking it from ax plus by equals c and turning it into the y equals mx plus b. So the first step is y is being multiplied by 10 and having x added to it. So we've actually got to move this x first. So we subtract the x from both sides so that we get 10y is equal to, and since the x comes first, I'm actually going to write negative x, and that was a positive 4. So like the previous example, we've got to divide. This means 10 times y, so the inverse of multiplying is to divide. I'm going to divide everything by 10. So 10 over 10 leaves me with 1, so I'm left with 1y is equal to. The number in front of the x is a negative 1. So I want to turn that into a fraction, so I'm going to leave that as negative 1 over 10x. Because remember, this is my slope. It tells me to go up, down, left, right when I'm graphing. So I want to leave it as a fraction. And then 4 over 10 would turn into a decimal, but we'll go ahead and leave it as a fraction and practice our reducing. And that would reduce down to 2/5. So there are all your examples for solving and putting an equation in y-intercept.